And this is when they bulldozed up in Waikele, Puna. And then before they put the drill rig up, but this is when Pele Defense Fund was suing because they had traded Kaholea forest for Waikele, Puna when Kaholea erupted. They were going to do the original drilling up in Kaholea and Volcano, but right where they were going to drill is where Pu'o is. So before they actually got started, Pu'o erupted and put an end to those plans. So the state traded Campbell Estates Waikele Puna lands for Kaholea, which they sued, Pele Defense Fund sued because it was an illegal land swap, and eventually they did win that lawsuit. But this is what happened to the forest in between that time. They put this is what they did up there after they bulldozed. And look at the ponds again, they just dumped this stuff on the ground. I mean, this was a prime gathering place for all of Lower Puna, and this is how geothermal treats that land. There's some more pictures of it, and there's some members of Pele Defense Fund down there back in the days when we were still doing this. But you can see how dirty this thing is. They keep saying it's clean, you know, it's clean. Look at that, it doesn't look clean. So this is what happened. The community, Pele Defense Fund organized with Big Island Rainforest Action Group and Rainforest Action Network, and then we started protesting and ended up having the largest protest in the history of Hawaii. We had, it culminated with, I think, 2,000 people up in the forest, and in one day we had 142 people arrested, and we finally got rid of them. These are some of the pictures of the people, the stuff that we did. Tom Brennan, and it went on for years. This went on for years, and we had a lot of support, and a lot of that came from PDF. So also then there was a lot of lawsuits. There were 70 people up near the plant that sued for damages, and PGV settled those cases and gave them money. And then PDF filed 6 more lawsuits at least. There may have been others. I was a plaintiff on 4 of those lawsuits, and they were for things like health rules and re-injection and permit violations and all kinds of different things. And PDF funded all of that. You know, the state and the county, they didn't fund any of this. So we really owe them as a community. And now, so there's also endangered animals in the area, and there's Diane Thomas is going to talk about that because she takes care of the crater up there where the birds live.
Aloha kako. Thank you for having us tonight, and for being here, and thanks to your families for allowing you to be here to learn more about this. I wanted to show this slide because it shows where, hold on, I have to get my little button to work here. Show this. You have this on? There it is. Oh, what did I do? Hold on. So sorry, come on. Alright, there we go. This right here. Oh, actually, you know what I did? I did that last night so I wouldn't be shaking. Okay, so that's PGV, okay? That's the plant that we have now. And that's Pu'ulena Crater. We purchased land there in 1986, and one day in 1992, I heard somebody up at the rim of the crater, and I went up and I talked to this person, and this man said, "Oh, there's a lot of ghost stories associated with this crater." Well, being a storyteller, I was really interested in that because I have my own ghost stories about the crater. And he said, you'll hear them laughing at night. They sound like sick donkeys laughing. It'll raise the hair on the back of your neck. Well, I hadn't heard that yet. I had moved there in September, and this was October when I met him. And come April, you know, at the time, like most of us here, we had a lua that was far away from our tent. And we were living in the garage, and I went out to use the lua one night, and I heard that sound. And sure enough, the hair on the back of my neck went up, and I called my husband. He came out and listened to it. He said, what do you think it is? And I said, well, this man told me it was ghost. He goes, you really think it's ghost? I said, well, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, a couple months later, I heard that there was going to be a biologist in town from the U.S. Biological Service, Services, and this is the Department of Interior. So this was going to be in Pahoa, and she was going to talk about endangered birds and snails of the area. And I thought, well, this is a good thing because I should learn about what snails are endangered, because I knew that my husband had been killing some, so I wanted to make sure he killed the right ones, and he was. But the woman who gave the talk, Michelle Reynolds, talked to us about the different sounds and played for us different birds of the area. So now, the first thing I want to show you on this slide is that if you're standing on the edge of Puna crater, right here, you can see there's PGV right across, and there's their new drill rig. This is a recent picture. If you look the opposite direction, this is the ocean here, and actually the ocean starts about right there and goes all the way around this way. It's about 180 degrees. So Michelle Reynolds came, and she actually did a study. She brought a whole group of scientists, and they spent most of the summer camping out on the land. And they had 167 sightings of what's called a newel shearwater, which is a seabird right here. They discovered that there were 4 endangered species. There's the pueo, the eo, and the newel shearwater, or the a'o, and the Hawaiian hoary bat. She claimed in this final report right here that Puna is an important natural resource. Okay, it's the largest of only 3 nesting sites on the island for these endangered newel shearwaters that are found only in Hawaii. So this is what they look like, and they fly at night. That's why it's so easy to understand that they were ghost stories, because they make this sound at night when they're flying. You don't see them in the daytime very much around here. They're seabirds. They fly out to the sea. They navigate by the moon. So when the fledglings are hatched and they grow, and when it's time for them to go on their way, this is what they look for. And they fly in the direction of the moon. They fly out to sea. Well, we now have this tower, okay? And oddly enough, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see how a bird can get confused. Would you agree? So, if the birds fly to the lights at Puna Geothermal Ventures instead of out toward the moon, they have a problem because they can land on the ground. And if they land on the ground, they can't get up and fly again. They cannot take off. They have to take off from a cliff, or from at least 3 feet high. So when Michelle Reynolds taught me about this, she said it was a problem, and checked with PGV to see if they would allow her access to check for dead birds, or the remains of dead birds, and they would not allow her access. So we know that the lights have an effect on the newel shearwaters. There's a potential for what is called take. Take means it's a term that includes harassing, harming, wounding, and killing. So if we take a look at geothermal, it's the dental hygienist anyway. PGV's resource permit on lighting, you'll see that their permit says that all lights shall be at a minimum level consistent with the safety of operations. Interesting that they're interested in the safety of their operations, but not the safety of the residents of the neighborhood. Forgive me. But it says that, and they shall be shielded or directed away from surrounding residential or populated areas and not interfere with important biological resources in the area. And I just told you that Puna crater was an important biological resource, documented. For years, we've tried to get them to shade their lights, and they have not. In fact, we were involved when many of the residents gathered together for a mediation with PGV, and this was an issue that was brought up, and they said they would shade the lights. In fact, the director of the plant at the time came out to our home, even with the planning director, and they saw the lights. They even were on the telephone having them turn lights on and off to make sure they knew which ones they were that they had to shade. And they're still not shaded, 20 years now. So the DLNR stepped in a few weeks ago. Well, it's actually a month now. When the drill rig went up in March, I called the DLNR and I said, okay, they have never shaded their lights on the plant, but now they have this drill rig and there's white lights on this thing. And I'm sure this is in violation of their permit. And so I spoke with Norma Krebs, and she told me that she would take care of it. And so she wrote this email on March 13th to Ron Casadas, and she said that the Department of, I forgot what FAW stands for, but anyway, she highly recommends that it's for the DLNR. They highly recommend that your operation take the necessary measures to shield facility lights and utilize long-wave wildlife-friendly lighting. She said that they do have the technology to do this. The folks at PGV, Mike Kuakini, told me that it was a safety issue that they couldn't shade the lights. But she tells me that yes, they do have the ability to do that. You just have to get the right shades. Then she wrote to me on March 20th, and she said that they are currently in the process of procuring the needed shields for their lights and replacing those bright white lights with softer, longer wavelength lights. And I still have not seen it. So, yes, they have an effect on the Neal Shearwaters, and yes, they're in violation of the permit. Now, when we look at this map of where PGV is, right here, and Pu'ulena Crater, and we know the birds have to fly out to the ocean, and they're going to fly somewhere that way. And we think about, okay, well, if they're going to put in some more drill rigs, and they're going to put them, if they put them somewhere in this triangle here, either up Kapoho Road or Poiki Road, anywhere between where they are now and the ocean, they can cause a lot of confusion for the birds. You agree with that? But what about the power lines? What do they have to transport all that power. So the birds, like I said, are flying at night. They can't see the power lines. They'll run into them, and we'll lose a lot of birds that way. In 2010, the U.S. Department of Justice filed criminal charges against Kauai Island Utility Cooperative for alleged violations of the Endangered Species Act and Migratory Bird Treaty Act. In this 22-page document, they included 19 counts for knowingly taking of dozens of Neal Shearwaters. So again, if we have all those power lines going up and down, okay, let's forget about the birds for a minute. What's that going to look like? Okay, did you know that on the island of Hawaii we have 623 miles of power lines, of high voltage transmission lines, and our distribution lines we have 3,000 miles, 3,141 miles. Oahu has a little bit more, and they're more dense, smaller island. And Maui has a lot less than us. I don't know what Kauai has, but they're the ones who just had won that lawsuit. These are pictures from Oahu. Okay, we know what our power lines look like here now. If they're going to transport all this power, how many more power lines are we going to have, and what are they going to look like? We know they have an effect on the Neal Shearwaters. There's some controversy as to whether or not the power lines have an effect on our health. I've heard both ways, and it sounds like there hasn't been enough evidence to prove that they are indeed harmful to our health. But what are they going to do to our pristine rural views? They're ugly. The sunsets in Kona will certainly look different. The sunrises here will look different. Looks like a storm's brewing there, and they're going to be marching on us. So the lights affect the Neil Shearwaters. What about astronomy? Do the lights affect astronomy? Has anybody asked the astronomers up at the observatories if there's an effect? Let's look at that permit on lighting again. Let's look at number 32 this time instead of number 33. The lighting used shall not interfere with the operations of the observatories located on Mauna Kea. Okay, they have it says here that to comply with this requirement, the permittees shall comply with the requirements of chapter blah, 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 Hawaii Code, Hawaii County Code. So I looked up Hawaii County Code relating to outdoor lighting. It was really hard to find online. Actually, I couldn't find it, but I do know that there is some kind of a contract between the observatories and our county, because that's why we have yellow lights everywhere. People from the mainland come over here and they say, why are all your street lamps yellow? Well, this is why, because of the observatories. So why are we looking, with all these observatories, why haven't we asked them if these lights affect them? Maybe one drill rig doesn't affect them very much, and they haven't noticed it yet. But what's going to happen when there's 2, or 3, or 4, or 10? What's it going to look like, and how is it going to affect our stargazing? So we know that there's impacts. We've talked about some of these impacts on the people, the culture, the health and safety, quality of life, our land values. We've been told that one of the benefits of geothermal is that we're going to have lower taxes. Well, that's just great. But why? Could it be because our land values are going to be down? I don't know. Environment. We've talked about that. The air and the water. We haven't talked about the noise, but anybody who goes by there at night, and Aurora can tell you she hasn't gotten any sleep. I can tell you I've called and complained. It's ridiculously loud. The crater acts as an amphitheater, so it's really nice and loud in our place. I called to complain, and I said, can you hear this? And of course I forgot to put the phone on speaker, and the man that I was talking to said, I hear the Kokies. I said, well, you can come up here and hear this. So anyway, and we talked about the wildlife. So business, it has impacts on business too. What about the business of astronomy? We haven't even talked about real estate. Is it going to affect that? And is it going to affect any ecotourism here? Who wants to go bike riding under all these power lines? And I don't know. So I'm going to hand this over to Bob, and I thank you for listening to me.